Hi kids! In this video, I am going to show you two alternate methods of how you can create a sketchbook. The first method that I'm going to show you is simply using a stack of papers, binder clips, and glue. Now this is a very easy method to use. This is a good method to use also if you are limited on supplies. But remember, what I want you to start to get in the habit of doing is trying to be resourceful. And what that means is I want you to start thinking of materials you can use that are around you, that you can recycle, reuse. Artists sometimes do the best work with recycled materials. Like I told you before, you don't have to have the fanciest sketchbook, the most expensive materials, the latest and greatest tools in order to be a great artist. So I'm also going to show you another method for how you can challenge yourself and you can stitch together your sketchbook. The second method that I'm going to show you is more of a book binding method, where this is a simple stack of papers with cover, the glue and binder clip method. So let's get started. All right, this first method requires that you have a stack of papers that you want to use for your sketchbook. Now, like I mentioned before, if you want to just use the binder paper that you have available, or if you would like to pick up some construction paper, or if you want to add decorative papers to your sketchbook, you absolutely can do that. What you'll see in this sketchbook is it has multiple different colors of paper, and some of the paper, they're not the same size, and that's okay. This is going to be kind of a little different eclectic style of sketchbook. And what eclectic means is it's a little bit kind of thrown together using materials and resources that I have. So it's not this perfect, well put together sketchbook. It's got a little bit of character to it. So what you're going to do in this first method is you are going to fold your papers using the previous video that I showed you. Then you're going to take your papers and you're going to stack them one on top of the other. Now you're not going to take your papers and stuff them all inside, because then you're going to have uneven papers that stick out, and that's not what you want with your sketchbook. In the second method that I'm going to talk to you about, we will stack our papers in a little bit, but we won't stack all of them. So with this method, we are just taking the stack of papers that we have folded, making sure that our edges are nice and straight, putting them one on top of the other. We're going to make sure that they're really, really cleanly all together. So I'm going to give them a little press against the table. I like to go around a little bit. And I really like to press this side, because this is where I'm going to glue together my papers. Now, you're going to need some binder clips that are slightly smaller than your stack of paper, because we really want to make sure that we pinch these shut. So I have some binder clips here, and you're going to see why you want these papers to be pinched shut in just a second. Now, one thing you'll notice about me is that I don't have the strongest hands, but I am going to force this binder clip onto this. So where there's a will, there's a way. You can make this work for you. So I'm going to kind of press this a little bit. I'm going to start with one end, and I'm going to make sure that I press my papers and pinch them very closely together. I'm going to kind of wiggle this on here, and if you have somebody to help you, that might be good too, so that you don't rip your papers. But I'm just going to kind of very slowly work to put that binder clip on there. Now you can see that it's pinching this shut right here. That's exactly what we want. Next, what I'm going to do is go to the next end. I'm going to open up my binder clip. I'm going to press these as close together as I possibly can. Give this a nice squeeze. And the second one will usually go on much easier than the first. Now, what you're going to want to do as well is make sure that the binder clip is pressed so that the papers are really even and pressed up against there. So we don't want any space underneath the binder clip. So I'm going to give that a little wiggle. I'm going to adjust the papers. Awesome. Now, you'll see that these are pinched really shut here, but I have a really, almost like a fatter center. So it's not perfectly pinched even all the way across. So I need to fix that. I'm going to add a third binder clip into the center. This is just going to add some extra support, and it's going to make the papers stay together even better when I glue them. And again, I'm working slowly to pinch the binder clip on there, just like that. Now, if I have to adjust them a little bit, I can. But I'm just going to wiggle these a little bit, going to make sure that that's on there. Make sure that these papers are even, the best that they can be. And you want to do all this work before you start gluing, because once you glue, you are not going to move this. Now, if you're like me and you like to take extra precautions, you can add a clip at the end here. You just have to be really, really careful that you don't ruin your papers. Now, this is an optional step. You don't have to do that, but I'm going to, because I really want to make sure that this holds. Now, all I'm going to do next is take my Elmer's glue. Actually, let me give this a little shake. And I'm going to dot this on here first. And with my finger, this is going to get messy. You are in art class. I'm going to slowly spread that onto the seams of my book. If I need a little bit more, I can add a little bit more. It's better to start with less first than have too much and have it run all the way down your papers. Now I'm making sure that I'm really pressing this in there. And this will start to dry rather quickly, but I'm not going to rush it. So I'm going to make my one little layer. And this part doesn't have to be super, super clean because we are going to cover it later on down the line. Now, once that's coated, I'm going to set it off to the side. I'm going to let it dry. And once it's dried, I'm going to go back with my glue again and add a second layer. You can do this a third time if you want, just to be extra sure that it's secure. It's completely up to you. Now, in the next method I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you how to stitch together stacks of paper. Now, here I have 15 stacks of 3 papers each. And what I did was took my papers, and after I pinched them really, really flat, I stuck 3 inside. So I made packets of 3 and I stacked them one on top of the other, because after I stitch these together, I'm then going to use the same method for gluing it. So the same method that I did before, I'm going to add my binder clips and glue. But I have to stitch these together first. Now I want to make sure that all of my stitches are in the same spot. So what you'll see here is I've already measured this one out and I've punched a hole in it. Now I punched a hole using a push pin. I'm going to stitch these together using a needle and thread. So let me show you how to measure this, stitch this, and then you know the steps now for gluing. Now what I'm going to do is take my ruler, and I'm going to line my ruler up right along the seam here. Now my paper is about 9 inches. So I want to bring this in about 2 inches from either side. Now, when you measure with a ruler, you do not put the ruler all the way to the edge of the paper. You actually start on the little line right there. So that first line is where you measure your inch. This is the beginning of the first inch. So I'm going to put my papers together. I'm going to line up my papers as close to the line as possible, or as close to the fold and as close to the first line as possible. I'm going to take my pencil. I'm going to mark at the 2, and I'm going to come in 2 inches, 1, 2, and the 7. And on those lines, right on the center of the fold, I'm going to take my push pin and push straight down. Take my push pin, and I'm going to push straight down. I'm going to take my needle and thread. I'm going to push that right through. Bring this through to the back. And I'm going to stop just close enough to the edge so it doesn't go all the way through. I'm going to then flip it over. Bring this through here, making sure that I make it through all of the holes. And now I'm going to bring this back through. I'm going to hang on to my edge. I'm going to flip it to make sure that it's nice and even. And once I have this through, I can tie it on the inside like this. Or if you want to, you can do this in reverse, where you start from the back point right here, come through, go around, and then you would tie it in the back. So let me show you what I mean by that. If you don't like the seams to show, I know some people don't mind it, you would start through here. You would go all the way through. Make sure that your thread doesn't get tangled along the way. You're going to stop right there. Bring this through here. And as I flip this over, I want to make sure I hang on to the edge. Pull this through till it stops. Then I'm going to tie this through, making sure that I have enough thread. I can pull this back if I need to. Loop this through. Then I'm going to tie it into a little knot, and then I will trim this. Now I'm going to do the same step for every single one of my packets. So I would rethread my needle. I would go through these 2 holes, loop it around, tie it, stack it. Rethread my needle, bring my other packet, go into my holes, bring the thread through, tie it, stack it. Now, this may be a couple of extra steps, but if you do decide to challenge yourself and complete this step, this is like actual bookbinding. So the first method that I showed you is an easy do-it-yourself kind of journal, whereas this one is more of like a bookbinding step. So this one is a little more challenging. If you would like to challenge yourself and try it, and you want to keep your sketchbook for longer than just this class, I would suggest you try this method. Once I have all of my papers stitched and bound together, I'm going to follow the same steps, this time with a bigger binder clip because I have bigger papers and more of them. I'm going to pinch them on either side, add one in the center, add my Elmer's glue, and do the exact same thing as the first. Put my glue, spread it with my finger, set it off to the side to dry, and then repeat. Once you've decided which method you want to use for your sketchbook, you'll start to gather your materials and you will start to put together the pages of your sketchbook using the glue or the stitch method.